What's going on, everyone? So I want to talk about kind of impact players and guys that I think could be real difference makers for the Lakers this season. Obviously, I don't want to talk about like Luka Doncic and LeBron James and Austin Reeves. Like those are the guys that are expected to be that. Same thing with Rui. Talk about kind of more the new guys and guys that have been on this roster that could maybe elevate to the point where they could be X factors, right? And a couple guys come to mind immediately, right? DeAndre Ayton, I kind of split on if I should dive into or not, because I think the expectation is he is going to be good and he should be good and he's always been good. I know, his Portland days have not been as good as like the Suns days, but big difference playing alongside a guy like Chris Paul that can set you up and make you look nice, and now a Luka Doncic. So, I think DeAndre Ayton is at least worth mentioning, but I think he's going to be just inherently because he's going to be playing alongside Luka and he's going to eat and feast in that two-man game. I want to kind of stick more to the role guys. I've broken down each player already and stuff like that. So I kind of want to just, talk about the role guys. Rui Hachimura, we kind of expect what to expect, but Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, LeBron James, and Rui Hachimura were 7.2 per 100 possessions, plus minus. They were plus 7.2 per 100 possessions. So those four guys, the offense is there. It's the defensive side of the ball that's a bit of a concern. Well, now you add in DeAndre Ayton. I do think that the Lakers, that particularly that starting five, is going to be, they probably are like a plus 11 or something. I think they're going to be one of the best starting five. The question is, can they generate enough stops over the course of a game in order to have that differential? We'll see, right? But the idea is, like, if you get in Andrew Wiggins, then that could really bolster. And I think at that point, I think the Lakers could potentially be the best starting five in all of basketball. But you need to have balance, especially come playoff time. Get away with a lot during the regular season, but playoff time is where, the holes really start to show, really start to shine. But guys in particular I want to look at, like Jared Vanderbilt, right? I mean, we've talked now, on several occasions about how, like, he's a serviceable offensive game away from being like the premier 3-and-D guy in this league. But I think it's more than that. If he was already the most versatile defensive player in all of basketball last year. Not my opinion, an actual statistical fact. Did an entire video on it. He was everything that this Lakers team needs, and he was still a foot or two steps behind. Right? No pun intended, because he had double foot surgery, right? So if he can finally get back to that, like the 2023 level, which a lot of people have thrown out, like that was his peak. He's probably never reaching that again. I don't know. I disagree, right? He was looking every bit that part the following season, and then he got hurt. His shot looked better too, right? He had that game where he was 3 of 5 from 3, and all of us were like, oh, he's back, baby. And then it just like fell, and then he got hurt, and it just kind of fell off a cliff after that. If he can kind of get back to being that, he's been working on a shot all offseason. I'm not saying he has to be like 38, 40% from three-point range, but if he can be like even 34%, would be a night and day difference for the Lakers. If he can get back to the level of defense and having that step to him that we saw in 2023, plus be like 34% from three-point range, I mean, we might not need another move. That alone might be enough to catapult us in a title contention because of how much ground he covers defensively. I mean, we were talking about, how it looked like he had instant transmission. He's just teleporting all over the place, right? Like, it was crazy. Like, go watch that Warriors series and the way he was defending Steph, and it was unfair at times, right? So he's a guy that I think is the obvious choice, right? Like, he has the potential to be the most significant X factor. But even guys like Marcus Smart, I look at. And Marcus Smart, I think, could really be game-changing for the Lakers if he can stay healthy. That's the problem. The last 2 seasons, he's not really been a model of health. He's not really been able to stay on the basketball court. Best ability is availability. But Minnesota was really good and had a great differential when he was on the basketball court. You saw every bit of the impact of Marcus Smart being on Minnesota when he played. Problem is, he only played like 20 games a season, right? So if he can get back to being healthy, which he himself acknowledged, like, he needed to get better. He's been working on his conditioning. He's been working on his health, dieting, all that stuff to kind of, stay in shape to be able to play more games. Also, I don't think he'd be needed, hopefully, as to play as big of a role as possible. I mean, I've even talked about, I think you should start Marcus Smart and Jared Vanderbilt in that starting unit just to have better starting and bench balance, as well as Luka likes to get going early, right? That's his whole thing. He likes to get in the groove in the first quarter. He'll take like half of his attempts in the first quarter. He wants to drop 20 or 30 in the first. So you don't really need the extra offense when Luka's going to be the guy kind of going to work early in the first. So go with the defense, and then you can always make the adjustments, make the little changes accordingly, right? Like now you could make the argument on the other side of like, oh, well, you go with the offensive guys and then switch that. But no, not necessarily, because if you can't get the stops, and Luka has a bad shooting night, now you're getting further and further behind the 8 ball. At least the defense will be able to keep it close. Defense will be able to close the gap, and then you can inject the offense accordingly, right? Like, hey, Luka just doesn't have it right now. Hey, let's get him out, put in Reese, see if he can go and keep the defense to kind of keep the gap closed, right? Like, you can do that. You can't really do that when you have a bunch of guys out there that can't defend their shadow, right? So, like, that becomes a problem. But Marcus Smart is a guy that I think he could be game changing, because he is a guy that he's not like a great 3-point shooter, but he can knock down the three occasionally. He can be crafty and a little sneaky on the offensive side, but more so that defensive versatility and his ability to defend 1 through 3, and even on occasion 4s. As he's aged, he's actually gotten better and better at defending up. Right, defending bigger players. It's why there's a real argument for him to play and slot in at the 3. Yes, he's like 6'3", but he's got that 6'9" wingspan, and the dude is an absolute pit bull. Right, the guy is physical, he's strong. Like he's the kind of guy, like you're not going to bully him. You're not going to push him around. Like he's going to hold his own. He's going to be aggressive. He's going to attack. He's going to be that defensive piece. He still has some of that athleticism and what you need to be that defensive player. Is he going to be, defensive player of the year, Marcus Smart? Probably not, right? He's probably not going to be that. But if he could be a version of that, that could be, again, a huge X factor for the Los Angeles Lakers, right? Another guy that I actually think has the potential to be better than everybody is Jake LaRavia, right? And I don't mean everybody in the sense of like, LeBron and Luka. I'm talking about everybody in the sense of like, the guys that I'm mentioning, right? He last season was already a B+ rated defender. He's already shown the ability to be a legit 3-level scorer, shooting the mid-range, self-create, step back 3, all of that. He's incredibly young. He is like, if I had to pick somebody to emerge as our 3-and-D guy to solve that issue, it's probably Jake LaRavia. He's got the athleticism, he's got the defense, he's got the versatility, he can defend 1 through 3 and do it well. He can even defend 4s and 5s, but not so great at the 5s and the 4s, but he can. Like, he's not like, like if you sought him at that, but he's better in that like 1 through 3 area. Defensively, I did a whole video breaking down kind of his chart and the way that he can defend, but you're not looking for him to come in and give you 20 a night, right? Like if he could give you similar to what Rui's giving you offensively, while also giving you just the superior defense, then that could be your answer, right? Like you have enough offense already. You just need somebody that can defend and defend at a high level. Like I said, he was already a B+ rated defender, and he said himself when asked, what's the one thing you think you improved on most this offseason? And he said, my defense. Said, I've been working very hard on his defense, which, the Lakers know, and he wants to start and all that stuff. Well, you're going to need to be able to defend. Right, your competition is to be able to give the offense that Rui's giving you, while also being able to defend at a higher level, and you're going to get moved in the starting unit sooner rather than later. Right, Rui's averaging basically about 13 points per game. I would rather, if Jake LaRavia averages 10 points per game, but is far better defensively, I'm going with Jake LaRavia, right? Because yes, that 3-point difference is you're going to get better return on the defensive side of things, right? Rather than Rui, he's giving you 13, but he's giving up 20, right? Well, Jake LaRavia is giving you 10 and he's holding opponents to 8. Guess what? Now you're actually ahead rather than behind. Right? Like those are the differences, and then it impacts everything else. And he still can score the basketball. He's still going to have those games where he goes and gives you 20 or whatever, right? He's still going to have those explosive nights and stuff that's going to be really good. So Jake LaRavia, I think, is a guy that could end up, in hindsight, looking back, I think it's very possible that he moves in to the starting unit and we're all like, wow, like, where has this guy been? Jake, and I've said this before, Jake LaRavia is better right now than Rui was when we first got Rui. I'm not necessarily saying Rui right now. I still need to see some from Jake LaRavia. I do think Jake LaRavia has the potential because of his defensive versatility. But when we originally traded for Rui, right? Rui was around the age that Jake LaRavia is, right? So you have that kind of upside and potential. But the other kind of guys, like Bronny James, I think, but I don't know how many minutes he plays. So I kind of like, I think he's, to expect him to be an X factor, I don't really necessarily think that. If it does, beautiful. Adou Thiero, I think is more likely just because of his size and his defensive versatility. But again, I kind of feel like that, like the expectation of that is a little unrealistic. Maybe again on the defense side of things, if he can be that defensive player, like if he could be a better finishing Jared Vanderbilt, right? Like that could do wonders for this Lakers team. Just to have him be a guy that can, play off ball, move without the basketball, be that lob threat. And he's a better finisher with both hands around the rim, And, to me, I look at a guy like Adou Thiero and I think, okay, if he can slot in and play in, then, maybe that could be, like, he could solve some of that lack of defense, but I don't know how good is his shooting going to be. Right. So, Bronny James, Adou Thiero, Dalton Connect, I just don't think is going to be good enough defensively. Offensively, he might help, but I don't think the Lakers really have a major need of offense, right? Like, I think like Dalton Connect could potentially win a game or two, but I also have concerns he's just too far gone, too far checked out. Maxi Kleber, I just don't think is going to see the court very much. Jackson Hayes, I look at and if he could give us the production that we saw of him as a starter, which I actually think is very possible, if he could give us what he was doing as a starter off the bench, which I don't think is unrealistic because it wasn't like he was putting up, averaging 20 and 12, right? Like, if he could give us, 8 and 5 off the bench on a nightly basis, playing alongside Luka Doncic, like that could be huge, but I don't know if it'd be big enough to be like the X factor, right? I don't think it'd be big enough to be like, oh, this is the thing that puts the Lakers or helps the Lakers over the top. The last kind of guy would be Gabe Vincent. Gabe Vincent, like we were all very excited for Gabe Vincent when he was traded to the Lakers, or signed with the Lakers, not traded, signed with the Lakers, right? They used the middle of exception. Problem is that like he got hurt, and then when he did play, he was like literally worst player in the NBA bad. Not my opinion, like a statistical fact. He was awful. And even to start the season, he was god awful. And then the last like 3-4 months of the season really just kind of became everything that we wanted Gabe Vincent to be. That scrapper, that defender, that knockdown three-point shooter. He was shooting over 38% from three-point range during that stretch. And, you saw like what could be with Gabe Vincent and was like, wow, this is great. And you kind of like look at like, okay, Gabe Vincent, Marcus Smart, Jared Vanderbilt, like you have those defensive pieces. Like you can have entire defensive units out there at the end of a game. Just put all your defensive guys out there and get a stop, right? Like there's a sense to like Gabe Vincent, if we can kind of get that Miami Gabe, he could be a difference maker. Talk about a guy that was the third best player on a finals run team. And on many nights was their second, right? And hitting big shots. And he was the guy that was closing down the stretch. And he was the guy that was, knocking down the big shots. And you just saw this guy that was like, man, like this could be it, right? Like, and then we sign him and it's like, wow, like finally. And then the Miami curse kicks in, right? Like with the guards, right? Kendrick Nunn and then Gabe Vincent. It's just so disappointing because you see him and he solves a lot of what this team needs as like that 3-and-D style guard, right? Veteran, experienced, right? Doesn't fold under pressure, a guy that can be that guy for you. And he just hasn't been year in and year out. This will be the first offseason where he's fully healthy. He's able to work out. He's able to do the things and get right and have an entire training camp, preseason and regular season, kind of get back in the swing of things. Maybe he could be the guy to kind of elevate this team to the level that we need. And then lastly would just be kind of like the collection, right? Like maybe it's not one guy in particular kind of rising to the thing, but it's just like, imagine if we actually had a good bench last year, how much better we'd be. Like, what if Jake LaRavia is good, not great, not like, hey, he should be the starter type thing, but he's just good for us. He's giving us, like 8, 3-and-3 off the bench and shooting 38% from three-point range. And, Jared Vanderbilt's just back to being that 2023 Jared Vanderbilt. And, Marcus Smart is back to being a version of, a defensive player of the year Marcus Smart. And it's just like the collective of those players all kind of culminating together to basically put us over the top. That could be an option as well. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. It helps me a lot. It's me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.